This is the opportunity right now. People thought that the time to get rich in crypto was over. Bitcoin has already gone up 1,000,000% or whatever, right? Like those times are gone. That's not true. If you're watching this, you're still early. You're still on the cusp of the biggest financial revolution that the world has pretty much ever seen, at least in our generation, and likely the last time that you'll have something like this in this generation. I'm talking about not the next decade, but the next 12 months.
The next 12 months will make millionaires. But what low-cap altcoins are primed, ready to blow? Crypto entrepreneur and investor Kyle Chase is back with 5 new low market cap, high conviction altcoin picks, and I was impressed.
Another low cap coin you're bringing us that you have high conviction in. I know you talk about low cap coins on your channel. A lot of times when people come on our channel, they talk about the high caps because that's the safest thing. But I love that you're bringing low cap coins that you actually have high conviction and investors thesis in.
Look, Bitcoin just broke all-time highs. This historically is the best time to be in crypto because altcoin season is right around the corner, and when it comes, that's where the real money is.
When alt season comes, which I know your audience is big fans of altcoins, and it makes sense because that's where the real money is made. Like Solana did in 2021, which completely blew people away. If you invested in Solana pre-2020 bull run, you did extremely well. Every single bull run is like this.
Smash the like button, send this video to a friend who wants to know more about hot altcoins. Without further ado, let me intro this.
Like buying Bitcoin at $1, like buying Ethereum at 1 cent. These 5 altcoins have the potential to do really well in the coming bull market. In fact, send this to a friend. Somebody needs to hear this, especially before this bull market really picks up. Today, early Bitcoin investor, crypto entrepreneur Kyle Chase is claiming that he has a list of 5 altcoins that are ready to blow. Now, he has his own YouTube channel linked below. Do you follow Kyle? Because I follow Kyle. If you do follow him, maybe you've heard some of this alpha or these coins before that he's about to drop in this video. But I would bet that most of my audience hasn't heard these picks yet, or at least not like this. Kyle, welcome back. How are you doing today?
Aaron, thanks so much for having me. Great to be here. And of course, feeling great as Bitcoin smashed through all-time highs. Was a bit concerned that we would see a big retrace. We might still. Every time that Bitcoin has a golden cross, which just happened, we do tend to see a 10 to 15% retrace. But regardless, it's hard to not feel great when the markets are looking as strong as they are. The fundamentals are as strong as they are. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good. I think this is our cycle. I think our audience is more prepared for this bull run than ever before, especially because we bring great people like you on the channel. And just in brief, how do you structure your YouTube channel? What kind of content are you putting out?
So I think it's really important that we pay attention to the way that the market cycles are going and macro and geopolitical fundamentals, because the biggest reality TV show in the world right now is the Trump show. Hate him or love him, that's where all eyes are. And he is shaping, him and Scott Bessent and these other guys, they're literally shaping the global economic policy right now, from tariffs to tax cuts to trying to press Jerome for rate cuts and these kind of things. So we need to pay attention to that, because if you just look at charts, you're going to be missing out on a lot of fundamentals. And so we are looking at things, like global liquidity, and we're looking at what is pushing the price of Bitcoin up right now so much, because we've had bullish macro news for a very long time. But for some reason, what is this God candle that we saw printed yesterday and today? Well, what's creating that? And so we have to look at that. And I think what's important, and I've learned this, I've been in Bitcoin and crypto since 2012. And it wasn't until I created the YouTube channel that I started really paying attention to markets. And because before I just acquired, back then Bitcoin was super cheap. I sold the company, bought Bitcoin and held it for a long time and didn't have a job, spent it on a lot of things, spent a lot of Bitcoin. But I never really tried to time the markets or tried to actually make a bunch of money. Like I realized that Bitcoin was going to be worth a lot in the future. And so let me just hold on to this as much as I can. But when I started creating a YouTube channel, that's when the real lessons started to come in, and paying attention to markets on a daily basis. And I've got a research team, that helps me to make these videos and produce research. So I think that until proven otherwise, it's important to kind of follow traditional market cycles. And so what we do on the channel is we try to educate people about what's going on, why the price of Bitcoin is moving, when we think altcoin season will arrive. And importantly, what I've really learned, is risk mitigation, or how to, try to minimize the risk that you have, because we've all been there before who have been here for a cycle or two. We always look at our portfolio, refresh on a daily basis. And at the highs, at the Pico top, when everyone's euphoric, we're all feeling amazing. That's the level that we usually set in our mind of how rich we become at some point. And then it's very rare to sell the top or anywhere near the top, because when you get the first dip, it feels like any other 15 to 30, 40% correction in Bitcoin. And we're all optimistic that it's going to come back. But when that bear market comes, it comes and it doesn't come back. And Bitcoin, sneezes and altcoins catch a cold, and they're down, Bitcoin goes down 60, 70% and altcoins bad. So I think that we need to look at the markets. That's how we structure the YouTube channel, is really trying to educate the audience so they know what to look for all the time. Because when alt season comes, which I know your audience is, big fans of altcoins, and it makes sense because that's where the real money is made. Bitcoin is just the leading indicator for what's happening. I think Bitcoin is a long-term store of value, and that's where I like to take profits into. I take profits from altcoins into Bitcoin. But the point is that at that moment in time, when we're all drunk or intoxicated on the altcoin gains, it is so difficult to be responsible at that point. So difficult. And so what ends up happening, and it, any YouTuber can go in there and tell you they're going to perfectly time the top, or I called this or that. I was just talking to Rand Nooner from Crypto Banter today, and he's been doing these channels for a very long time. And he just admitted, today that he's not good at selling the top, and I think that it's really difficult to do that. Show me one person who said that we're going to have a blow off top in January of this last year. And only the best traders in the world would have probably seen that. So we're trying to hone in on what is that.
That's what I like about your channel, that you do have the team of researchers that I'll give you the information and then, your experience. But Kyle, let's jump into it. The audience is hungry for these altcoin picks, but let's talk about that leading indicator first. What is your outlook for Bitcoin this year?
So, well, I think that largely depends on two things, but I'm speculating that the first thing is likely to happen. So we have a really big conference coming up, Bitcoin Vegas, and there's a lot of big players there. You've got the Trumps, you've got Senator Lummis, you've got Hester Peirce, you've got Bo Hines, all of the White House and the SEC, Paul Atkins, they're all coming to this event. And you remember, Trump signed an executive order to create the strategic Bitcoin reserve, which we now have. And in the executive order, it says that we shall find budget neutral strategies that don't cost taxpayers money in order to acquire more Bitcoin. The key word there is shall. We shall find ways. It's not that we can or we maybe, it's we should. So you have that as part one. And that allows us to go buy Bitcoin and put it on the strategic reserve before a bill gets passed through Congress, like Senator Lummis's bill, which would, if that passes, then we're buying 200,000 Bitcoin a year for 5 years to buy 1 million Bitcoin in total. But that doesn't mean that we can't do creative things. And they've talked about that. How do we buy Bitcoin now? Well, we can reprice gold, which probably should be done. Gold's price right now, currently, all of the gold supply we have, for some reason, it's on the book at $42 an ounce or something, when in reality, gold's worth like $3,200 an ounce, right? So reprice it, that instantly frees up $800 billion of capital that could go somewhere. Well, that could go to buying Bitcoin, for example, without costing taxpayers money. We have, I believe it's a $3 billion stockpile of cheese. Why? Why do we have $3 billion worth of cheese? Shouldn't we trade the cheese for Bitcoin? I think we should change the cheese for Bitcoin. So then there's then there's Senator Lummis's bill. Now that's going to be a little bit more work to get that passed through Congress, right? So, but I'm thinking that maybe, just maybe, Aaron, that this week at the Bitcoin conference, maybe there's an announcement of the first acquisition, or the plan of the first acquisition for the strategic reserve to acquire some Bitcoin. To me, it makes a lot of sense that they would do it. It's been a while since that EO has been signed. The Bitcoin community demands that the Trump administration keep promises made, promises kept, right? That's what Trump says. Let's see it, So I'm thinking that maybe that happens. To your point, if that happens, right? I think that when the United States starts acquiring Bitcoin, I think it's game on from that point. The lesson that we can learn was back in the 1800s, late 1800s, when there was two precious metals that countries were acquiring. There was silver and gold. And the United States and many other countries went and started acquiring as much gold as they possibly could. China refused and stuck on the silver standard. Lesson learned from that was that you need to evolve, because everyone was on silver before, right? And then gold became the new thing that people decided to call the reserve. So they started acquiring it. By 1938 or something, silver became essentially defunct, and anyone who had gold became economically superior in that situation. The same thing can be looked at today. Everyone acknowledges Bitcoin as digital gold. So who is adopting it, right? And the world has historically looked to the United States to say, what are you guys doing, right? And as long as the United States does it, then we'll typically follow on. So I think that once we start acquiring Bitcoin at strategic reserve bill, sorry, not the bill, the strategic reserve, I think that it's just going to be a crazy domino effect. And from that point on, we'll see a supply squeeze, a shock like we've never seen before. And if we do that, I think we'll see $1 million Bitcoin much sooner than people think. Option B is that doesn't happen, and we have a normal 4-year cycle, and Bitcoin tops at 220, 250 by the end of the year. If not, I think we're going to $1 million plus and extending into a crypto super cycle where we go well into 2026, maybe even 2027.
It's possible there is no bear market as we think of it. Obviously, there'll be consolidation periods, but it's possible we just keep going.
I completely agree with you. I think like most people that believe that are more conservative and don't want to admit that publicly because it's a very bullish look. It's like someone saying that Bitcoin would go to $100,000 10 years ago. You know, they kind of knew in their heart maybe it probably would one day because they had that much conviction. But it was a risky thing to say because you looked at like, you know, it's like talking about aliens 10 years ago, you know?
Totally. Guys, smash the like button. Kyle's providing so much value. Give him a follow. Let's jump into altcoins because obviously we're all more savvy than the average crypto investor coming in this year. Obviously, most people, you know, they're going to buy Bitcoin, they're going to buy Ethereum, which might be on your list. I don't know, but we want to hear your top 5 altcoin conviction plays. I don't know if you want to start off by kind of giving your general altcoin, what narratives you like this cycle, or just jump into number one, but give it to us.
So I'll give you just a quick thesis. I'm going to assume that we have a traditional altcoin cycle as we've seen previously. However, I don't know that it's going to be as extreme because, like it or not, we're going to have distractions, and it's going to come in the form of meme coins, crap coins, and coins that don't have any value that will be highly extractive. On the flip side, we potentially could have a situation where we have more liquidity coming into the space than we've ever seen before. We certainly know that that's true on an institutional level. That's without a doubt. That's already proven, right? How much of that capital flows into the altcoin market is to be seen. But I do believe, though, that as institutions and family offices and more independent funds like the fund that I run and other independent, smaller funds, I think that they will have an appetite to go further up the risk curve and look at traditional cycles and see how they go. And we know that capital rotates from Bitcoin, and then we see the Bitcoin and Ethereum pair starting to switch, Bitcoin dominance coming down, Ethereum gaining traction. I do believe, and it's not on my list today, but counter to what a lot of people are saying out there, I do believe Ethereum is going to really surprise people. Just because it's the most battle-tested layer 1 right now, and people think it's slow and it's boring, and it's got a bad UX and UI. Those things are true, but so did the internet in the early days. And if you manage billions of dollars of other people's capital and you somehow put it on a chain that gets exploited, or I like Solana, don't get me wrong, it's not on my list either, but I get like Solana, but they're doing constant upgrades to the main chain, right? They're going to put in Sapphire Dancer and they're doing all this infrastructure changes. It's like trying to update a 747 jumbo jet mid-flight full of passengers. It's dangerous. So Ethereum, the fact that they're not innovating very much on the main chain, it actually gives a safe space for people to come and build things that are worth billions of dollars. And if you manage billions of dollars and you put something on Ethereum, you're probably not getting fired, right? You're probably not getting sued. If you do it on something newer, like my favorite L1 that I will talk about is Sui. But still, even then, right, that needs some battle testing before I think billions and billions of dollars come into the market from any one individual company. So my thesis is that we're going to have an altcoin season. I think that it's going to have a higher risk reward profile than Bitcoin, but I think that that's a good thing. And I think that people should be, what I'm doing, and I hesitate to people what they should do, but what I'm doing is a barbell strategy, right? So I have currently about 60, before it was about 70 to 80% of my portfolio in Bitcoin. Now I'm starting to see strength. Now that Bitcoin has smashed through all-time highs, I mean, just a little while ago, I started kind of rotating a bit more into Ethereum and some other altcoins. So we'll talk about those. Not like I've been out of altcoins for the whole time, but now I've switched from about 60% Bitcoin, 80% Bitcoin to about 60% now. So the first one,
we're on to number one now.
We're gone to number one, and I just mentioned it. So SWI. So SWI. The reason that I'm mentioning SWI is because the story of SWI, right? And I
don't know the story of SWI. Tell me the story of SWI.
Okay, so it's sitting right now at a $38 billion FDV. But you have a pretty low emission schedule. And so really in a bull run, this is over many, many, many years that this full inflation will have to happen. So I'm not super concerned about that. But the story about SWI is it came from Zuckerberg. So Mark Zuckerberg, right, from Meta and Facebook, you guys all know, was about to take over the global banking system. So they created first Project Libra, that changed name to Diem. And just before their launch, they were shut down by the government saying that you can't do this, right? And it was mostly because he was creating a blockchain that was going to create a currency that was backed by many different currencies around the world. And the United States said he probably would have gotten away with it if it was just backed by the dollar, right? But he wanted to try to build a more like sound. He knew the dollar was debasing and losing value. And so he wanted to create
a
basket, right? So he got shut down, but not before spending $1 billion of R&D and building out the Diem blockchain. And it was really innovative. Totally a whole new generation of blockchains. I mean, we're talking about, it's not Bitcoin, it's not Ethereum, it's not even Solana. It takes it even a step further and goes into developing a brand new contract language called Move. And when you're talking about security on blockchains, there's a few things that really need to improve. One, we need to not have exploits and hacks because that hurts reputation. It scares people away. It severely hinders innovation. So the Move smart contract, this Move language is built off of something called Rust, which is just a language, and it's really, really secure. So you have the guys. So when Zuckerberg's company was shut down, essentially two factions came, right? Actually, it was three, but two main ones, right? You said Aptos and SWI. At that point, I was closely watching both of them to see which one was going to play the retail game better. Why the retail game? Because the people on your channel, the audience, they want to make money, right? So we're looking at where the tension is. And SWI decided to go more retail focused, and they're doing a phenomenal job. If you go to a SWI event or a conference, I was just in Dubai at the Basecamp event, amazing energy, brilliant people around, innovation happening. SWI's building a whole tech stack, like a whole decentralized internet tech stack. So no more centralized servers, no more centralized memory, no more centralized bandwidth. It's all coming. They built it on the whole stack, so SWI can become an infrastructure for the like Internet 3.0, essentially Web 3.0. You know, currently in Web 3, we're still using tons of Web 2 infrastructure. We're using Microsoft Azure as Amazon Web Services. When we store our profile pics from NFTs, they're on centralized things called IPFS. So SWI's building the whole tech stack, and they're doing a better job at marketing to the retail. And I think this is a better job than Aptos. I'm not trying to make this an Aptos for SWI show. I'm just saying that I really like SWI as a layer one. And I think like Solana did in 2021, which completely blew people away. If you invested in Solana pre-2020 bull run, you did extremely well. Every single bull run is like this, where the layer one play, and to the audience out there, like, don't get me wrong, you can invest in all the other L1s and you're probably going to do really good, or L1 alternatives, right? Avalanche and Algorand and these other ones, right? They're probably going to do really well. I just think right now, when it comes down to mind share, don't forget, I moved back to the United States for a reason. I was out for 8 years. I came back because crypto here is legal again. And I think that USA coins are going to have an advantage over everything else. And SWI's built and operated within the United States. And I think that them showing up at the crypto gala in Washington was a really big deal. And I know that they're networking within, that whole Trump administration. I've seen them. I've seen rumors of things that are happening. They made an announcement with Microsoft recently. Microsoft's now using them on the developer stack. So SWI is the safest, I think, on this list of risk to reward. Also the highest market cap. So I'm not expecting like a 20x or anything like that from here. Do I think a 10x is possible? Sure. Do I think a 5x is inevitable? I think definitely. So that would be number one.
That's number one, guys. Smash the like button if you like SWI. To be honest, we talk about SWI sometimes. I've never seen it put as beautifully as that. And I remember you were talking about SWI early on your channel, but happy to jump to coin number two if you're ready.
Yeah, we've been talking about SWE for a very long time. I think it was around $1 when we first did. So next is going to be Gunzilla. So I think this is very special. Why do I think it's very special? I think it's very special because I'm intimately familiar with the team over there. I was one of the early investors here. And I'll tell you, it's people in the comments, I could already hear them. Oh, Kyle, you're shilling your own bags. Like, full disclaimer. Actually, not everything on this list. I'll tell you when I come across something that I don't hold. But obviously, if I'm talking about something I'm super bullish, I'm going to hold it, I'm going to study it, and I'm going to talk to you guys about it.
You're putting your money where your mouth is.
Yes. And Gunzilla is a different one for a reason I'll tell you right now. So we invested a lot between my fund and myself. We invested in Gunzilla very early on. What's important here to note is, first of all, Gunzilla, they're a AAA game development studio that built a game called Off the Grid. Off the Grid is, so last bull run, we saw the crypto gaming narrative, and there's the biggest YouTube channels in the world, not yours, Elio Trades, Alex Becker are always going to talk about, and specifically Alex Becker and Elio Trades, two of the biggest channels. They're like only crypto gaming, right? So, and they get so much attention. So to bet on that narrative, and I would also just, another play here I'll mention, just super shout out to Elio. It's not on, I'm not talking about it specifically today, but I think that's a great, you just can't fade Elio. He's amazing. But Gunzilla, AAA game, they already released the beta. It's a layer 1 blockchain that is permissioned. So I already know there's already rumors because the tech stack that they've built, they enable amazing games to come. Web 2 development companies, think about companies that wanted, remember Ubisoft like a year or two ago announced they were going to do something on chain and they got crucified. Okay, now they can probably come back and do it again because crypto is less weird than it was back then. So development companies that want to build tech stacks can come build on the Guns blockchain. This is the custom-made blockchain that Gunzilla built for Web3 gaming. And so I know that they're in talks with other big gaming studios, but that's not the point. The point is that they have Off the Grid. And Off the Grid is a AAA game co-founded and produced by Neil Blomkamp. So Neil Blomkamp is a famous Hollywood director who created Elysium and District 9, huge blockbuster movies, right? People who like Neil Blomkamp, they love his stuff, completely obsessed with him. And you can see his art reflected in the game. You can see his art reflected in the kind of the trailers that are being played. And I know the kind of marketing campaigns and creativity that the team has is absolutely mind-blowing. Plus, the game, for the first time in any Web3 game, can be played on PlayStation, Xbox, any PC, mobile, all the consoles, on Steam, and so every outlet you can play this game on. And it currently has about 150 to 200,000 transactions on chain every single day from people actually playing the game. And it's only in beta mode right now, right? So, and I know Vlad, and he's just Vlad is a founder. He's laser focused on building something. So the point I want to make to your audience right now is this. This was released. You can see first day of trading was back here, March 31st, right? So March, April, May. We're less than 2 months into it. So all of us investors in every bucket of token unlocks in the future don't happen for 10 more months. So the only thing that you need to look at on my screen right now is this market cap, right? Even the fully diluted valuation. If you look at something else, like let's just say, for example, IMX, which would be probably the most well-known gaming chain that doesn't have any AAA games in it, right? That fully diluted valuation is 5 times more, but with 0 AAA games on it currently. And the circulating market cap, this is 4.5 times more. So
the Guns token is like such a low market cap right now.
It's crazy, $33 million. So the point I want to make here is this. Even though I have a pretty big supply from my early sales, I'm making this as a trade, right? So what's my trade? Well, I believe that we're going into a parabolic altcoin run. And there's no more inflation in this until our investor unlocks happen in 10 months from now. So the trade is this. You buy this coin. Why is it so low right now? Because retail's simply not here, because altcoins simply haven't gotten their pump yet. But when inevitably the narrative of Web3 gaming comes back and it's being shilled by every YouTuber in crypto, the clear thing, even if they have skin in the game or not, you can't mention Web3 gaming without Gunzilla and Off the Grid. So it's going to be talked about by everybody. It's going to have mind share, market share. So the point is, I've actually been buying this at this price right now. Because why? Because I'm going to sell it before that 10-month unlock. And then I've made this as a trade. It's just because I know the project so well, it's a really simple trade for me.
Right. So I like the way that you differentiate. Some things are trades to you. Some things are obviously holds, like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Yeah. Thank you for putting guns on a radar. I can see the value prop there.
So listen. So here's how your audience can play this too. If you like what we've heard and you want to go check it out, do your own research. Obviously, what I'm planning to do is buy now, sell before the unlock. When the unlock happens, I think the valuation is going to be huge. I think investors like myself are going to be up tons, right? They're going to take profits like crazy. So it's almost just like you have a crystal ball looking into this, saying that this thing's going to pump before the unlocks. When the unlocks happen, it's going to come probably crashing down a lot. Buy now, sell before those unlocks, wait until it comes back down. And if the game's still proving traction and progress and player count is increasing and okay, then you can buy back. Like that's just the easiest trade for me.
No, that's alpha. And you people watching, you want to make sure you're subscribed to me and Kyle, because we'll try and keep you updated with these unlocks and as we go forward with this. But would love to get to the next coin, Kyle.
So the next one is not Chainlink, but I'm just showing you because last time I was here, that was my number one pick, and I still have a huge position of it, and I still think it's super important. But I want to frame my next pick via Chainlink. So Chainlink has what's called the build program, and Chainlink's build program designates tiers on the projects that they bring under the build program. And by the way, I'm still bullish on Chainlink. It's still a pick of mine, but just I've talked about it before, and the other ones in this I think will probably appreciate even more. So, but I still have my position. So Chainlink has the build program, and they have a tier 1 designation. Tier 1 designation essentially means there's only 3 projects that have, out of the 85 that have gone to the build program, that have a tier 1 designation. Tier 1 designation means that the technology is essential to the tech stack to help them grow and be more useful to the world. So Chainlink is interesting, right? Because if you pay attention to what's happening, I think that anyone who's in the room with Trump, kissing the hand, kissing the ring, is going to be blessed by the golden era of crypto in America. Well, when you had the round table, who was in the room that had a token? You had Sergey Nazarov. You had, I think Brad Garlinghouse was there. I don't remember. I think Brad was there. And then you had Brian Armstrong with no token. So the only guy really, and I'm not a big XRP fan. Don't hate me, guys. Like I just did a video on that. I like the technology. I don't think that, I think there's just too much mechanics that won't cause the price to.
You don't have to apologize to anybody about your opinions, Kyle.
Okay. Well, I just, there's a lot of people anyway. So this is, the next one is Mind Network. So Mind Network is one of the tier 1 designated projects from the Chainlink build program. Now, what is Mind Network? Mind Network is essentially an encryption technology. Now, normally privacy is a boring narrative, right? But it's so critically important to our infrastructure. And when I heard the relationship of what Mind Network was going to have with Chainlink, it got me really excited. And that's why I went after the team, found out what they were doing. And so Chainlink's technology has something called CCIP. This is a cross-chain interoperability protocol. And what it will allow to do is it will allow all of these different blockchains, right? Chainlink just announced their integration with Solana. So before they just did all EVM chains, all Ethereum layer 1s and layer 2s. Now they're going cross into Solana. So Chainlink is the mesh, the mycelium, if you will, that connects all the blockchains and allows them to talk to one another. That is critical for the future of bringing TradFi, traditional finance, and on chain. So all these banks, JP Morgan and Chase and all these guys, they're going to have their own blockchains, private blockchains, permission blockchains, and they need to be able to settle things on public networks. They need to be able to trade on public networks. You have now exchanges that have launched like Hyperliquid, which is a fully decentralized, open, perpetual exchange that's fighting to be the most efficient capital market in the world. And so when you are a trader and you're doing things like high frequency trading, so think about these huge Goldman Sachs type of venues that are having billions and billions of dollars of trading volume every single day. Well, you don't want other people to know your strategies. That is proprietary stuff. But if you're trading on chain, then anyone can see your transactions. You've probably seen it, I'm sure. Anyone who goes through crypto Twitter looks and you see now Whale opened $400 million long with 50x leverage. Like those are all coming from like open, permissionless, decentralized exchanges like Hyperliquid. Now, a hedge fund would never want anyone to know their positions because they can counter trade that. So you need encryption on these things that Chainlink is doing. And so Mind Network has something called the ticker of the token, FHE, fully homomorphic encryption. That's a very complicated way to say the holy grail of encryption technology. Really quickly, the way that encryption normally works is I encrypt something on my device. We send it to a machine, maybe it's to you, whatever. And then when it gets to the place where it needs to be read or processed or understood, an AI, for example, encrypts it on my computer, sends it to the data center, then it decrypts it so the machine can process it. Then before it sends it back to me, it encrypts it again. That's a vulnerability. The problem is that for that second that it gets decrypted into plain text, it could be attacked. FHE is an incredible technology. It's the holy grail that allows machines to process information without ever encrypting that data, which is what every bank needs to use blockchain, what every financial fund needs to use blockchain, what Chainlink themselves said they need to use blockchain. And Chainlink just asked my network to be an exclusive partner of FHE for their technology. So I think that this sitting at a $26 million market cap, $100 million market cap, I think as Chainlink, so it's gonna, it's to me, it's like a high beta play on Chainlink itself. So if Chainlink starts getting massive adoption and integrated into all these things that we've talked about before, into Swift, into traditional financial networks, and like Sergey says, if they start processing quadrillions of dollars of volume every year, the net benefactor is going to be my network. So this is my network. I did a really good interview with anyone who wants to watch it on my channel with Christian, the CEO of my network, if people want to learn more.
Another low cap coin you're bringing us that you have high conviction in. I know you talk about low cap coins on your channel. A lot of times when people come on our channel, they talk about the high caps because that's the safest thing. But I love that you're bringing low cap coins that you actually have high conviction and investors' thesis in.
I think it's important because, we talked about the barbell strategy earlier, and barbell strategy means that your safe bets are placed in that 80-85% of your blue chips. And so for me, I said I had now 60% Bitcoin. That means another 20% or so is in other blue chips, Solana, SWI, Chainlink, things like that. I still have about, 10%, 15%, whatever, that I'm playing with more mid, and then probably about, 3 to 5% in real low cap stuff that I like to gamble at the casino or play around with. So a little bit from time to time. Bluefin.
Let's get to the next pick. I see Bluefin here.
Yeah. So Bluefin, because I have this really strong thesis on SWI, Bluefin is the think about, for folks who don't know what Hyperliquid is. Hyperliquid is a decentralized exchange that trades perpetuals or futures. And they have a spot product too. Bluefin's the same, except for that it exists on SWI. And so you have some benefits and some trade-offs, right? But the market cap, let me just show you guys, so people so they can understand. Hyperliquid did a phenomenal job. The technology is great, like no doubting it. I almost consider it in this show. The problem is the valuation is just so high that I can't possibly come into this thing with a bunch of size and conviction, because
Hyperliquid's been running like crazy over the last months.
Yeah, and the time to get in with it was long before it was on my radar. So some plays you just miss, you know what I mean? And you don't want to chase things. Like, I think Hyperliquid's fantastic, right? But what did I include in today's show? No. Why? Because it's a $33 million valuation, and that it is a layer one blockchain that has a killer use case. The killer use case is the perpetual exchange it created. The question is, people are pricing in, this becomes another layer one with actual other products that are being used on a massive basis. And I don't know, I haven't seen any proof that traction is actually going to happen. And even if it does, it's I don't think it's going to like surpass SWI or Solana anytime soon. So anyway, but look at this. So essentially you have one product, right? And they built it on their own chain. So they're sitting at a $33 billion FDV. Bluefin has done about $65 billion of trading volume since they launched. They also launched with a similar product that feels identical to a centralized exchange. You can trade any kind of tokens on there. It doesn't matter what chain they're on. And you can trade perpetuals. And they recently, about 2 months ago, launched a spot product as well. And I guess ironically enough, the number one competitor for their spot DEX just had a hack this morning and had all the liquidity locked out. So, I mean, that's probably why we're seeing Bluefin pump 25% today, because they have a really good position right now to kind of take over then where they were. They're always the strongest in perpetuals and futures exchange in the SWI ecosystem. And they were closing in on the spot exchange. But now that Thesis had a big hack today, potentially we're going to see a lot of that come over to Bluefin. So I know the team really well, backed by a bunch of really great investors, Polychain and all the big market makers. And so I believe that the future of trading and finance is going to be on chain. It just took amazing technology to bring it there. So SWI has 100 millisecond latency, 100 millisecond transaction time. So it feels as fast as a centralized centralized exchange. So that's what Bluefin does. They have a really good fee revenue model that goes back to token holders, and they have a really good basis and connected really well with the Sui ecosystem.
It's so good. They shouldn't call it blue. They should call it green.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they went through 3 name changes. I won't go through the story, but I hung out with the founder for a while, and he told me the whole history of their name changes. When I first met them, it was about 3 years ago, and it was called D-Trade at the time. And then I forget the second one. It was going to be something really cool. And then they had an intellectual property fight from the guys from, I think, Huobi or something. And anyway, so that's Bluefin. Now, okay, so I own all these so far that I've told you about, right? And
are we coming up? How many have we gone through? How many more do we have left?
That was 4. This is 5.
5. Okay.
And then I'll give just real quick. I'll give you just one for 5 seconds at the end. Yeah, you'll understand why, I guess. So WorldCoin is one that I don't own, and I wrote it off at first. This is, and for anyone who doesn't know, this is Sam Altman's project, right? So obviously
people say it's like, people, the original kind of critiquing crypto. It's not Web3 ideals. They're trying to like onboard everybody's information, but you like this coin. Yeah.
So, I mean, right. So you have this is always the debate. And I mean, we could have another discussion another time about data privacy rights, about us feeding all of our data into these, these big conglomerates that, that like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, who know more about us than we know about ourselves. But we're talking about how to potentially look at making money here. And so I'm not saying that maybe I'm I don't know, man. I'll tell you, Aaron, I have a hard time. Like, the most useful tool in my life right now is ChatGPT 03 model. The 03 model blows my mind. I use it all day, every day, nonstop. It's the best assistant I've ever had. It's the best anything I've ever had. It's like having a whole team of PhDs and MBAs to help me on what I need to do. So, but the point is that we just saw the Google I/O announcement, right? And wow, is AI getting fantastic and so easy to use. We can create full-length feature films now with sound effects and voices and everything. Deep fakes are everywhere. So there's tons of deep fakes right now with Joe Rogan, Trump. Even I was talking to Rand for crypto, but he even said there's like deep fakes of him going around that look perfect. There's no one else, as far as I know, that's creating some sort of something that actually I do know another project, but I thought they were ridiculous when they approached me. This one has traction, right?
These guys are connected with Sam Altman.
They are. This is Sam Altman.
Exactly. So this is like the connected project who can actually get it done, right?
Yeah. So that, right. So I mean, if anyone has the capital, the network, I mean, and they're already rolling out like crazy. So they have, I forget how many eyeballs are already scanned. It's a crazy amount. And now they're rolling out these other machines that are much smaller, easier, portable, that people are able to do. I think they're going to have an app soon that people can do. So
you would get your eyeball scanned because you believe in this.
It's a really good question.
Or not a user, I guess.
It's a really good question, Aaron. And I think that might be the case for now. I think that I'm not going to get my eyeball scanned in the meantime. But I will tell you that, I guess on one side, like, what's the difference between this and every time I come into the airport, they scan my eyeballs and they scan my fingerprints too, right? I in some ways, I might trust one of these big conglomerates more than I have traditionally trusted the government. Certainly the security is probably better at OpenAI than the US government, at least before Doge came into the picture, right? So I don't know. It's a really hard ethical and moral discussion that we don't have time for right now. But I do think that when you look at, the big concern with WorldCoin when it came out from an investment perspective was that 1% of the circulating supply came out on day one. And the valuation was unbelievable. It was like hundreds of billions of dollars. So that sold off a lot. And now we have governance capped emission schedules. So we don't have to worry about this hyperinflation. I think that they're taking this project very seriously, and they're really trying to make this something that works well. I don't own this token yet, by the way. That is full transparency. It was only brought to my attention this morning when I did a little altcoin show with Pete from House of Crypto and Ram. And then I started looking into it a bit more. And I think that it's a pretty sound model. So I don't own this one. But I just wanted to share because
you're bullish.
Because I think that at a $2 billion market cap right now, from something that Sam Altman's doing, OpenAI clearly has more immediate value, clearly has more users. But Tinder, for example, just integrated the WorldCoin system. They wanted to do proof of human for people who are using the dating apps, right? This is an idea that I had for one of the projects I was trying to build a couple of years ago. I wanted to do proof of, like, essentially, instead of having something scanned, I wanted where people could review each other on different social media apps and dating apps and stuff like that too, because
you sent so many female bots money on Tinder back in the day. I remember you were just
and showed up to, yeah, exactly. No. But I do. So I think that's a really big win for them, a big use case, right? And it shows you that where we're headed very quickly. We're very quickly headed to a world where you're not going to know if you're talking to an AI or talking to a human being. And if someone does a deep fake of me, right, and then they make this video on this crap coin or something like that, pure scam, how are people going to know if it's me or not? Like, I think that today already they can make a deep fake of me that looks really good. If not today, then certainly within the next 6 months. So the time is here. And I think that if we're going to look at someone who's going to win that race of proof of human, it's probably going to be WorldCoin. And I think it's a real use case that probably needs to be served.
Sure.
So the last one, which I think that's
this is the bonus one.
This is a bonus one, and
so we went through all 5, and now you're gonna give us a bonus one.
Right. Well, I have to tell you before I say that, the reason I didn't mention the 2 that I'm really bullish on is because I legally don't think I should. But I just want to mention that to my communities. Of course, paid and Commonwealth are something that every single day I'm working hard on. We're building, real world applications. That's the reason I moved back to America, because Americans have historically, for the 4.5 years that Paid Network, for example, as a launchpad has been operating, we haven't been able to service Americans. And so, we've been having discussions with Bo Hines and the White House, the SEC, on how we can bring our technology, our platforms to America. But for legal reasons, and just because I don't want to mention those in the show,
I'll say it, Paid and Commonwealth with the token wealth.
Yeah. WLTH. So anyway, I want to mention those because, of course, I can't do these are like what I'm working on every single day, and people need to know that. And if I didn't mention them, people would go crazy. So the last one is something that the fact that I hate telling you about it, I'm embarrassed to tell you about it, and I feel like it's just not a good look, is probably the reason why it's a very good degen play. It's Fartcoin. And I hate saying the name. I think it's the most ridiculous thing. And I think that, like Elon says, that usually the most ironic outcome becomes the truth. Because I literally, it's the nails on a chalkboard for me. And I've learned that oftentimes when you have these situations, they're called hated rallies, right? And it's because people think they're so stupid, yet that's why people buy them, because of the irony. And that's how the younger culture is today. That's how the internet is today. And that's how things work. And so the fact that I hate this thing so much, and the fact that it's sitting I work my ass off, Aaron, to try to build real products and things that deliver real value. And this thing comes along called Fartcoin and is way more valuable than things I'm building, makes me hate it. And I think it's going to go through a crazy hated rally. It's sitting at number 77 in the entire world as far as market cap right now. And there's no signs of this thing slowing down. It's got $300 million of daily trading volume. It's not yet listed on Binance or Coinbase or anything else, but it's inevitable that it will be. And it was born out of the time that we had the AI agent thing and stuff like that. This is the one crap meme coin that survived that whole agent implosion. And I've been watching this thing since it was very small, and yeah, it's called a hated rally, and I think that's gonna ironically do extremely well this altcoin run.
Amazing alpha, Kyle, dude. Thank you so much for sharing everything you shared today, guys. I can't bring Kyle on all the time, although I like to. He's clearly a busy guy. Go follow him. He puts out content on a multiple times a week basis. Like he has like a whole team of researchers. I think you're one of the best in the space. So go subscribe to this guy. And Kyle, give us final thoughts for the Altcoin Daily audience.
Well, Aaron, I want to say that I really enjoy watching your show, Killer Whales. It's great. And we did our another version too, Crypto Nights, which was just released on Prime Video. So if anyone wants to go see how, I think it's interesting to watch. I love watching what you guys do. And I think what's interesting about Killer Whales is it gives a perspective from the kind of like, for your perspective, from someone who sits and looks at projects all day long, and you have a huge audience, and you've got guys, you know, on there like Mario and Ran and stuff like that too, that all can give that perspective. It's different than a VC angle, right? It's different. And these guys are looking for a different kind of support. So our show called Crypto Nights is more of that traditional Shark Tank type of format, where you have mostly just VCs sitting on the panel, and then we, you know, get pitched by these projects. And it's interesting and difficult because they're trying to pitch something to an audience, you know, mainstream audience, which, as you know, is going to, a lot of these things are complicated, but I think it does a really good job at trying to educate the audience on what are things like a TGE and evaluation and how, so you learn when you watch the show. And I just want to say congratulations to what you guys have done, Killer Whales. I was invited to be a guest on that, and I was not in LA at the time, but congratulations on that so far. And thank you for having me on. I think that we're both in the audience for a really special time right now. I think it's a time that people should be paying attention. And this is the opportunity right now. People thought that the time to get rich in crypto was over. Bitcoin has already gone up 1,000,000% or whatever, right? Like those times are gone. That's not true. We're still, if you're watching this, you're still early. You're still on the cusp of the biggest financial revolution that the world has pretty much ever seen, at least in our generation, and likely the last time that you'll have something like this in this generation. I'm talking about not the next decade, but the next 12 months are likely going to be something, if you're paying attention carefully, can dramatically change your life.
Love it. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Aaron.